Hi, my name is Kathy Jones and I'm a sergeant with the Fort Worth Police Department. I was asked to speak to you about my career path and the choices I made to become a Fort Worth police officer. But before I do that, I'd like to talk to you about who I was prior to and what led me up to this career path. I was born in Rochester, New York. Yes, I'm an implant now. And as a little girl, used to enjoy playing in the street in front of my grandmother's house with all the neighborhood kids. So at 5 years old, I would hang out. We played stickball, baseball, football, and just enjoy the day. Well, I remember one day, a police officer was driving down the street. I never really saw them a whole lot. But on this one particular day when they drove by, all of us thought it would be cute to yell out pig and I smell bacon burning. Although cute then, not so cute now, and really wasn't all that funny, even then. As the officer drove by and we shouted that out, he tapped on his brakes and we all took off running. You know, I thought about, after I had done that, why did I do that? What's it like to be in his shoes? I think that's the first time that it really affected me, where I wondered what it was like to be a police officer. At 9 years old, my family packed up and moved to Fort Worth, Texas. We moved in the Wedgwood area, and I attended J.P. Moore Elementary School and Wedgwood Middle School. I made a lot of great friends and had a lot of fun in the Wedgwood area. But at my senior year, my mother remarried and we moved to Burleson, where I attended Burleson High School. Now, my mom was hired as a dispatcher with the Fort Worth Police Department. I always thought it was kind of neat what she was doing, but I really didn't understand. So my mother would allow myself and my sisters to go down and sit and dispatch and listen to her and see what it was like for her and her experiences. So we would sit there for hours and hours next to her while she would dispatch to all the patrol officers. A lot of times the patrol officers would come into dispatch because they knew that the kids were there with the parents. So I got to meet a lot of the older officers. I enjoyed watching the camaraderie and the fellowship of the officers with all the dispatchers. And I could see the intensity on the dispatchers trying to do their best to protect the officers as they were dispatching to very violent scenes. I remember on evenings that my mom was at work, my dad would sit at the kitchen table and listen to the scanner. I really enjoyed the time that I had sitting there with my dad, listening to my mom. And it really helped me to understand a lot of the things that they did. Even as a little girl, I wanted to hear, and it was so exciting, the different things that the officers were doing. Some of them were very violent, some of them were very funny, and some of them were very sweet. But I enjoyed that time sitting there and listening to my mom. After I graduated from Burleson High School, I had researched the Fort Worth Police Department and what it would take to join the department, as well as some of the other departments. At that time, the requirement was 32 hours of college. So I had attended the junior college in this area. Several years later, I was married and had a little girl. I was 24 at the time when I decided to go ahead and initiate my application process to the Fort Worth Police Department. Now, my daughter was 8 months old then, so it was a challenge. I needed to be a parent first and then look into a career path second. But I also knew that if I was up to the challenge, that I'd have to get myself physically ready for the Fort Worth Police Department. So I began running 3 miles a day, twice a day, 100 push-ups a day, twice a day, and 100 sit-ups a day, twice a day. So I started my application process. Now, during the time of the application process, we had to do what's called an assessment center. The assessment center consisted of doing a reading and writing comprehension test, doing a physical agility and a quarter-mile run, going through a interview board. Now, back then, the interview board was deputy chiefs, captains, lieutenants, and sergeants. They would sit in a horseshoe, and the applicant would sit in the very middle of the horseshoe and get drilled with questions. It was very stressful, but I made it through it. After I received word that I was accepted into the academy as a recruit, I joined on August 13th, 1986. Again, you have to remember, I had an 8-month-old daughter that I had to contend with, get her to babysitters and relatives' house. The academy was a wonderful thing that I enjoyed. It was 4.5 months long compared to the 9 months, almost 9 months that it is now. My academy class back then was very unusual in that it was one of the very first pushes to diversify the police department. Now, back in 1986, the police department consisted primarily of white males. So my class was the very first one that pushed for that diversity. The very unique thing that I liked about my class was that we had 11 females. The challenging part of this was that the 11 females had to share 2 showers in the ladies' locker room. So after physical training, you had 11 girls rushing into the locker room. The 4.5 months went by pretty quick. At that time, we thought it took forever. There was a lot of testing, a lot of studying. You were constantly exhausted from all the physical training and all the studying you had to do. It was something that my family supported. My daughter was a perfect little girl and helped her mom get through it. Once I got done, I was assigned out to patrol, and that's when my career really took a jump. I can tell you that even in training and patrol, a lot of those officers that I met when I was a little girl in dispatch were still here and were very good about taking care of me. Now, they didn't let me get away with anything because they were the ones that would challenge me in a lot of different scenarios and make sure that I understood safety and really led me into being a good officer. So I always appreciated that. Now, in my future videos, I'd like to talk to you about some of the different career moves that I've made within the Fort Worth Police Department. I have been given opportunities to move to a variety of units and have a lot of wonderful stories about some of those units that I have worked in. If you do want to ask me some questions, please attach it to the video, and I'd be glad to address your comments in future video. But until then, my name is Kathy Jones, and I am the Fort Worth Police Department.